episode 33, and this week we're talking about security tokens, utility tokens, and DAOs. Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Learn Cardano podcast, the podcast where we break down all the ins and outs of Cardano so that you can go off and mint your own security token or utility token or create a DAO, whatever it might be. This episode, we are talking all about that, not minting and making them, but what they are, what the differences between them are, and why you would want to create a DAO. Or what is a DAO? Why do you want to create one and run a company or business as a DAO? So there are a whole bunch of things that you need to think about. A lot of laws, a lot of regulations. This space is still very new. I have a legal expert joining me on this podcast episode, Yao. He can't reveal exactly who he is because of his work in the legal profession, but all his contact details via Twitter will be in the show notes for this podcast episode. But before we get into that interview, let's start off with some news. The ADA news space has been a little quiet of lately, mainly because I think the Sunday Swap ISO, the initial stake pool offering, has been taking up a lot of the news space and has pretty much drowned out anything else. If you haven't voted for us, please do. The links and the information for everything is in the show notes. And by the time you listen to this podcast episode, you probably only have about 24 hours to do any more voting. So if you're listening to this as it's released, please check out the show notes and give us a vote if you can. The Vi Finance team have also released a video of their DEX, not the visual front end, but the actual code itself. So you can see the code playing out in the background. They've written APIs. You don't need to know what that is. It's just an application programming interface to talk to their smart contract. And you can see them interfacing it with it on the command line, which means it's now very easy for the web interface to talk to that. And then a Web3 wallet such as Nami or the new Yoroi wallet to talk to that. So there's all these different interconnecting parts, and the main part where we can actually see some scripts talking to the smart contracts has happened, and we can see it visually within their video. I'll post a link to it on their Facebook page. Check it out. You can see exactly what's going on. It's not the sexiest looking thing because it literally is code on a screen being executed and someone's typing it in, and it's all like doing its swap that it's supposed to do. But it's really cool to actually see another project implementing it and visually showing us the back end of it actually working, not just the front end, because it's so easy to mimic the front end and just draw a couple of graphics that will interact with the mouse and looks like it's doing a swap, but you can't tell if it's really is. This really is. This is legit. This is the real deal. So it's really good to see. Congratulations, Vi Finance team. Now, also with the news and announcement of Sunday Swap and what they're doing with their integration and rollout, testnet, etc., we saw a little preview of the Yoroi DApp connector. This is something I knew that was being worked on in the background, but there's no code libraries available. There's nothing that we can tangibly test as a development piece as yet, so nothing in beta or nothing in a preview or a release candidate at all. So we haven't seen it in play, and I'd really want to see how it works. How will it connect with the existing Yoroi extension for the wallet? Will it replace it? Will it be an extra thing? I don't know, but we are really waiting for these extra wallets and features to appear so that more and more of the dApps that are being released in later this year, I'm hoping later this year, and we really need these connectors, these dApp connectors, to be able to do all of these smart contract things from a website. So fingers crossed that comes out very soon. Nami wallet seems to be the default go-to at the moment because it is the only wallet out there that we can interact with and play with at the moment. And it's really nice. It looks really cool. It looks really easy to use. The UI is pretty good. We've also managed to connect it to one of our own projects, which is cool. we're building out the Ronin Universe website, the brand new version of it, and it connects directly with the NAMI wallet. From there, you'll be able to pull in assets to your website. So you'll be able to use the NAMI wallet, log into the website, pull in your assets, and then create a shareable page of all of your NFTs. So you can pick and choose what you want to share, save it to the database within your WordPress site, and then push it out to the rest of the world. So if you want to show something off and you want to show off your profile of NFTs, but you only want to show a few of them and you don't want to expose your wallet with the 10 million ADA that you have in there, you can just create something like this on a project and share it out there. We're doing something else more interesting with this particular website, but there's multiple different use cases for this, so it's pretty interesting. We're packaging it up as a WordPress plugin, so if you're using WordPress as a website, you can fire up a WordPress instance pretty cheaply, pretty easily, maybe $30 at the most, $30 a month for hosting, and then connect up all the bits and pieces that you need so that NAMI wallet will connect to your website and do this type of interaction. It's pretty cool. I think it's nice. We've gotten a good little bit of a response from it, and hopefully we'll be able to roll that out the next week or so, and then you'll be able to play around with it if you have a WordPress website. That's it for the news items for this week. It is a bit of a quiet week, but that's okay. We've got some big events that are coming up later this month. Fingers crossed we'll see some of these extra things that we need for smart contracts to be more workable for the decentralized applications. All right, so let's get into this interview with Yao. He shares all of his knowledge around utility tokens, security tokens, and decentralized autonomous organizations. There's lots of things happening in this space at the moment, and we go all into that. All right, let's get into this interview.
I have Yao joining me on this podcast episode to talk all aspects around tokens. Where are they utilities? If you're trying to create one, do you need to create a utility token? What's a security token? What's the legal implications around creating one or the other? Why you can't talk about price action on Discord channels when a token's going to be released? All these crazy rules. And I'm glad I've got a legal expert on the podcast to actually talk about this so we have a better understanding of what we're dealing with. Yao, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to do this as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of really exciting things happening in the legal space and regulation space at the moment. So it's, as you say, it's perfect timing to talk about this. So first off, can you give us a little bit of information, a little bit of background about yourself and how you got into crypto, and more specifically, how you stumbled and dove into Cardano?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a commercial lawyer based in Sydney, and I got into the space into Cardano specifically in around 2017. It was actually my first cryptocurrency investment. And when I read the white paper, I was just kind of blown away by the vision that Cardano has and Charles, the founder, Charles Hoskinson, has for, the world in 5 to 10 years, which is, now. But yeah, it was just a fantastic journey. And I started a Twitter account about 2 months ago, or less than 2 months ago. And I happened to run into Pete during a Twitter space. We were talking about the legal regulations and regulating NFT tokens and DAOs. So yeah, that was a fantastic space. Glad that Pete reached out to me, and yeah.
Yeah, the conversation there was quite interesting, and that's what led me to reach out and actually dive a little bit deeper into this, so we can understand what DAOs are and how this NFT space and this utility token space is evolving so much at the moment, and all the regulations around it. It's very interesting. But let's start off at the very beginning so everyone has a really basic and good understanding of what's going on, what things are. Can you explain to us what is the difference between a security token and a utility token?
Sure, Pete. So basically, a security token is classified basically as an investment. You buy a security token with the expectation that you're going to make money from it. And that's very different to a utility token where you're buying a a particular token for the rights that you're gaining access to. So a good example of this is, say, if you walk into, say, Starbucks and you buy a membership card for Starbucks, that can be considered like a utility token, in that when you buy it, you're not expecting the price of or the value of your voucher to go up. You're kind of actually looking to use it in the future. You're buying it with the expectation that you can use that voucher to get coffees in the future, right? And securities, on the other hand, is essentially like a share in a traditional market, financial market. So when you buy a security, you're basically buying a portion of the company or the organization, and you're looking to see that value go up by the activities of the company. So this distinction is important, because when you have a security token, there are different regulations that surround it. There are different financial responsibilities that the person that created the token has. And so they're more strictly regulated than a utility token, because with securities, you have a duty to the investors to essentially make sure that they don't get screwed over, right? Whereas with the utility, the value is in the actual right, and the utility of the token, which is like giving you access to a particular network, giving you access to voting, these sorts of things. So that's why there's so much controversy around this, because a lot of cryptocurrencies are actually quite similar. Even if you have a utility versus a security token, they look very similar in cryptocurrency. And basically the big differences, I think, is the way that they're marketed and the way that they're presented to an investor. So those are the kind of differences and I guess the distinctions of a utility versus a security.
Right. So that's probably why you can't talk about a price of something when it's launching, such as like Sunday Swap is launching at the moment. We can't talk about its price because it's could then be seen as a security. Is that right? Because like you're getting these tokens and you're expecting it to be valued at X. So you get as much as you can, and that's how much you should be expecting as a return. Is that the idea?
That's exactly right, Pete. So when you see this a lot with NFT projects, where the founders are actually creating an expectation of profit by saying, hey, you should buy this NFT project because we think that the price is going to go up 10x and you're going to be riding your Lamborghini in about 10 months or something like that. So right there, you're creating an expectation of profit, which is very different to, as I mentioned, what a utility token is, where you're buying this token and the founders are saying, hey, this token gives you access to our community. This gives you access to voting when we have different governance decisions when it comes to our project. So those are the kind of differences. And I see like a lot of NFT projects going down the route of advertising themselves as a security, even though deep down they think that they're a utility token. So it's pretty interesting. I actually had an Aussie NFT project. I won't say the name, but they were actually participating in like sort of a delisting event on their Discord, where they were saying, hey, everyone, like, let's all delist our NFTs. Essentially what that means is when you post an NFT on like a marketplace, that sets the floor price, which is the very minimum price that you can get in to that NFT project, and telling their investors to essentially delist and take it off the market so that the floor price will increase. And I reached out to them and I said, because I was quite close with the developers, I said, hey, like, you should be careful when you're doing this, because as a creator, you have a responsibility to not shill your project as a security. And I don't think that was their intention. It was just that they didn't know about the legal ramifications of what they were doing. So it's a really fascinating area, which is going to be really, really important in the future when regulation does become more clear and when the SEC and in Australia, the ATO and ASIC decide to come in and regulate.
Wow. Okay. So what about all these TikTok influencers that are saying like, oh, you should buy this penguin project? I can't remember what penguin.
There's so many.
Whatever, lazy penguins, whatever it was. I can't remember what it is. Like, you know, pick a verb and then put an animal together and you got your project. Whatever it is, it's going to the moon. You got to get in on this project now. So all of those people that are promoting projects like that liable? Are they breaking the law because they're promising that this project will go to the moon, it will increase in value?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think if they're, say, an influencer and they're not directly involved in the project, then they wouldn't be liable because this is just their opinion and probably likely not financial advice or legal advice. So I wouldn't see that as an issue. The only issue I see is when creators get involved and when project developers get involved and they join in and say, hey, like you should buy my project because I think it's going to go to the moon. And so that sort of sets them up for failure. And when they do that sort of thing, it's not necessarily that they're breaking the law. It's more that they're classifying their asset in a certain way, which makes them liable if they haven't registered as a security and they haven't done the due diligence and the legal process to getting registered and with ASIC, with the ATO. So that's the sort of issue that I see a lot with NFT projects in particular, because a lot of them are quite grassroots. They're very like startup kind of vibes. So they're looking to make quick progress and they're looking to increase the floor price of their token and to really, I guess, like make their project as hyped as possible, but they're not thinking about the legal side of things.
Yeah, and a lot of these projects do want their NFT to increase in price as much as possible, because if they're gaining royalties off this, whatever volume of trade there is, they'll benefit off that and they'll get the royalties based on the sales. So it's in their best interest to increase that floor price as much as possible. And it's not just the NFTs, it's tokens, whatever it is, it's that they can buy back and burn. Would that be considered as a security risk as well?
Yeah.
If they're trying to manipulate the price of something by buying a lot of the tokens and burning them?
Definitely. That is a big red flag. Even in traditional financial markets, when you have a company that is, I guess, like trying to manipulate the market and manipulate their stock price in a certain way, that does set them up for some investigations. But I think in the world of cryptocurrency in particular, it's a bit more dangerous because a lot of these project developers aren't public. They're not doxed. And so the rug pull option is there whenever there is a security kind of investigation. So that's something that I always tell my I guess community to look out for. If a project is not public and that sort of thing, and if they're involved in sort of market manipulation, involving themselves with like, you know, trying to raise the floor price, creating expectations of future value, that's sort of red flags for me. And I think like if you're listening to this, like just do your research, look at if there's a white paper on a project, like read that. It really the Wild West at the moment, as you know, Pete. And so like there's a lot of great opportunities to make money and make life-changing money, I guess, but there's also big opportunities to lose it all as well. So yeah, just do your research.
Yeah, NFTs is definitely the new Wild West of the crypto space. Before in 2017, it was all the ICOs out there promising huge values and huge gains. And then back then I was trying to understand what was called a Howie Test. So you can determine if a token that you're buying into was actually a security and whether you're supposed to, if you're even legally allowed to buy it. Now, from what I understand, citizens in the United States can't buy security cryptocurrency tokens. So a lot of them can't participate in these token launches or whatnot. because there are all these security implications around it. Can we talk a little bit about what the Howie Test is to determine what a security is? And then maybe we'll talk about the what's happened since 2017 that has created this space where United States citizens can't participate in security tokens.
Yeah, sure. So the Howie Test was basically derived from a Supreme Court judgment in the US in 1946. So it's a really old case. And basically the judgment in that matter basically outlined some broad strokes in how to define a security token. And the rule is there's kind of four elements, I guess, which is a security is an investment of money, B, in a common enterprise, C, with an expectation of profits, and D, predominantly from the efforts of others. So when you're using that lens in the cryptocurrency space, an investment of money and in a common enterprise is kind of, that's satisfied in most cryptocurrency projects, right? Because you're buying a token, so you're investing money in a common enterprise, so, a project or a, cryptocurrency NFT collection. But the expectation of profits and derived from the efforts of others is really the two big issues that cryptocurrency projects need to look out for. So with an expectation of profit, what you're basically saying is that your token or your NFT project is an investment as opposed to providing utility or like some sort of right to access. And so that's kind of the difference between securities versus utilities in a nutshell. And you see that kind of approach being adopted in Australia, albeit I think in a little bit more of a restrictive way, funnily enough. So Australia, the ASIC, which is the Australian version of the SEC, basically released an information sheet 225, which basically says that if the share or the token kind of provides ownership to a body, voting rights to a decision in the decisions of a body, or some sort of right to participate in the profits, then it is likely that the crypto asset is a share. So you're seeing here like a little bit more of a restrictive approach where even voting rights could be considered a security. So that's sort of I guess a broad overview of the Howie Test and how it's applied here in Australia.
That's interesting because ADA allows you to vote on chain for Project Catalyst. The fact that we can use our ADA to vote for particular projects in the Cardano ecosystem, would that mean that the Australian government could possibly look at it as a security then?
Yeah, I think so, Pete, because like from the readings that I've done,
oh boy.
Yeah, from the readings that I've done, don't worry, because I think like a lot of the cryptocurrency projects that we have probably invested in already could be considered a security according to to ASIC. So I'm invested in quite a few of these. So I'm in the same boat as I guess many of you, as you, Pete, and probably many of your viewers. But yeah, I think the catalyst for ADA, Project Catalyst, which is essentially like a DAO for the ADA ecosystem in US, like I would consider that kind of a utility token because you're voting on particular proposals and you're not really expecting the value of your ADA to increase because that's the value is derived from your ability to vote and to participate in the network. Australia has taken a bit of a different approach. They don't really see cryptocurrencies in particular as a security or as money or foreign currency. They actually classify crypto as property. And what that means for investors is it's an asset that is available for capital gains. And so that's why we see a lot of issues in Australia with divesting in our crypto. We are liable and for capital gains tax when we do decide to to exit. And so cryptocurrencies can be viewed and taxed as income tax. And if you're holding it as an individual, that's definitely income tax. If you're holding it as a business, it could be seen as a business expense. So that's a bit of a difference there.
Gains tax. Get taxed at both ends for us state pool operators, for example. Just so people understand, here in Australia, when you get your ADA rewards, it's taxed as income. So you get your rewards, that's taxed as income. And if you don't sell it at that point in time, whatever gains you make from that point in time when you get that ADA and when you sell it, you're subjected to capital gains tax, which can vary from individual to individual. So you get taxed once when you get it as income and taxed again when you sell it.
So that's the difference in Australia, and that's why we get taxed on both ends, because a lot of other countries might see cryptocurrencies as money, and when you're exchanging forex or something like that, you're not getting taxed as in capital gains. Whereas in Australia, we have property capital gains tax, which is a tax which is attached to property, which is why you get taxed on, say, real estate and other valuable assets. And so that's the kind of reason why Australia's cryptocurrency regulations around divesting is so restrictive.
Thank you, Australian government.
Yeah, thank you very much for all the hard work that you've helped us with.
Yes, exactly. So back to my other question there as well. How's these laws around securities affected the US citizens and how they can speculate in various cryptocurrencies?
Yeah. So I think I'm not too familiar with the US kind of legal framework aside from these sort of overarching principles, but I do know that a lot of US projects, cryptocurrency projects launching in the US, are opting for a securities offering, which is basically what that means is they've accepted that they're a security token and they've gone through all the legal, I guess, loopholes to register as a security. And so they can actually offer their token in what's called a initial security offering. And so that in that way, I guess US investors can actually invest and speculate in those projects without having to worry about the legal ramifications.
Gotcha. I'd just like to remind everyone that's listening to this that none of this is financial or legal advice. Listen to the disclaimer at the end of the podcast. This is just educational purposes and our opinions that we're talking about. Seek a lawyer. Seek a lawyer or financial advisor for any advice that you need around any of this stuff.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. So this is all very, very interesting. Now, we've covered the basics. We have a really good understanding of what securities are, utilities are, the landscape, and how it all looks at the moment. But now what we're seeing is the evolution of these tokens and even evolution of companies to what's called a DAO, or a Decentralized Autonomous Organization. You hear this phrase thrown around a lot. You hear now that DAOs are an actual recognized legal entity in the United States, in the state of Wyoming. So there's a lot of new regulation that's coming around this. Can we talk a little bit about what a DAO is and how this all fits into the landscape at the moment?
So a DAO, as you said, is a decentralized autonomous organization. And basically it's a fancy word for basically a group of people that can vote on particular proposals to lead a organization in a certain direction. And I guess you can look at it as a company without kind of a CEO or a upper level management team. So basically what that means is that a lot of the people who hold the token, people who are involved in the DAO, can vote on certain proposals that allow them to essentially influence the way that the DAO kind of evolves and delivers their goal and value. So what you'll see is most DAOs have a voting system and a treasury. And so when you invest in a DAO, all that money goes into a treasury, and that means that proposals can be funded. And when you have your vote, you can vote for anyone can in the DAO can initiate a proposal. Say, for example, if the DAO's purpose was to, I guess, plant trees, a user or a committee member of the DAO can actually make a proposal to plant these trees in a certain area. And if that vote gets passed, then the treasury gets dispenses some funds in order for that person to carry out that objective. And all of this is automated, which is the A of the DAO. And that basically means that this smart contract protocol automates all these actions. So there is actually no one central authority that makes these decisions, that puts these decisions into place. They all run autonomously without the need for, I guess, a single entity.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's actually how Project Catalyst works in the Cardano space. So Project Catalyst, people can submit proposals and ideas, submit them to the idea scale at the moment. People vote on it, and then the governance phase kicks in and these projects get voted on and get funded accordingly. But it's not all completely automatic and automated at the moment. It's still a little bit of a manual process, and IOG hold the purse strings. But eventually when Cardano, the project, gets into the Voltaire era, we'll see this evolve and become more autonomous and grow into a completely autonomous organization, which is absolutely amazing. Now, Cardano is trying to reach that goal, but there's also other companies. We were looking over an article a little bit earlier about Shapeshifter, who is a company in the United States that is a exchange. They provide swaps of different tokens and different cryptocurrencies, but they're a centralized exchange. They're a company, there's a CEO there, and they're looking at now forming a DAO and transitioning from that company structure, the regular company structure, over to a DAO. This is crazy. I think it's absolutely crazy. Like, how can a traditional company move into a DAO structure like this and then continue to operate? Like, can we talk about this? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, so I think like DAOs are like the big new buzzword in the crypto space.
Yeah, big time.
It's actually crazy. Like every project, everybody in the every project is trying to be a DAO. And I think like when you think about the principles of cryptocurrency and what cryptocurrency is trying to achieve, a DAO seems great, right? Like you have transparency, you have democracy, it's decentralized. There are many, I guess, there are many pros to having a DAO, but there's also many cons. And I think that just like the ICO boom, as you mentioned, happened in 2017, you're going to see a massive influx of DAOs, and then you're going to realize like a lot of these organizations are going to realize that, it's actually not that useful for us. Like we don't actually need to be a DAO. Right now, a lot of them are going into it because it's, it's the new hype thing, but
Indeed, it's what you should be doing. Like, what, you're not launching a DAO?
Like, oh my God, we're going to get so many Twitter followers if we announce being a DAO. Like, it's crazy. But there's actually a lot of things that you need to worry about when you become a DAO, and there's a lot of setbacks as well that you need to think about. So, for example, like one of the biggest things is smart contract risk, or basically coding errors. As I mentioned, like because a DAO is automated by smart contracts, the integrity of the DAO is basically determined by how strong or how rigid the code is. If there's a hack in the code, or if there's any sort of areas of fault, then the whole system kind of will shut down. And we did see that with the first DAO in 2016. Do you know about this, Pete?
Yeah, I'd heard about it, but I don't know the details of it. Like, can you explain to everyone?
So basically, the first DAO was launched on Ethereum in 2016. And this was seen as a massive success. I think they raised something ridiculous, like 150 million USD, which made it the largest crowdfunding project ever at the time. But what happened was somebody actually managed to find a kink in the smart contract system and was actually able to withdraw funds from the treasury. And they did this by basically double spending, which meant that they launched a transaction and then they kept launching the transaction. And the way that the smart contract was structured was that the transaction would go through and then the balance was altered. So basically, if you kept sending transactions, then the balance wouldn't keep up with the amount of transactions that's going through. So what happened was they stole a couple million ETH, which is, ridiculous amounts of money now. And basically everybody was screaming bloody murder, and they were saying, oh, this is all ridiculous, it's a scam. And eventually what happened was Ethereum had to hard fork their protocol in order to refund the investors of that organization. So it was really like good and bad. It was a trial and error kind of thing, which you see a lot in the crypto space. But yeah, that was basically one of the risks that is one of the biggest risks of a DAO. There are a few others as well, but yeah, like that's was really fascinating. I think it should be something that projects like Shapeshifter should consider before they go into it.
That's why we have Ethereum Classic and Ethereum. Yeah. Why they actually 100%. Exist. So you get the ETH and the ETC. That's why Ethereum Classic is there. They're the hardcore ones that went, no, this is how it should be. We'll keep it as it is.
And yeah, that's actually a really great point. And it's a good segue into like another weakness of a DAO, which is actually when you have that level of decentralization and democracy, it's very difficult to get a lot of people to agree on a certain proposal. And so what you'll see is a very horizontal power structure, which means that a lot of votes will be very highly contested. And you see that I guess like an example of this is exactly what you said, Pete, with Ethereum Classic and Ethereum, the standard Ethereum that we all know. When you have that sort of hard fork, it basically means that the people or like the community can't agree on a certain proposal, and thus they had to split it so that both parties or both sides of the community are satisfied.
And it's kind of ridiculous. We don't see much of this happen anymore. We just see projects copying code of other projects and launching their own thing anyway. So it's a very different space these days compared to 2017, 2018.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing that I found really strange was that if a regular company did something wrong and their shareholders or token holders were badly done by, there's always like a CEO or someone responsible legally to take the blame for it, to take the fall. Maybe they get charged or something. But in a DAO, there isn't anyone like that. So if a company like Shapeshifter moved into the DAO structure and they did something completely wrong, they stuffed up like another code error, another major hack, another flaw or something like that, and lost millions and millions of dollars, who is held responsible then?
Yeah, 100%. That's I think we were talking about that over Twitter, Pete. Yeah, it was a really fantastic question, and I don't really have an answer for that at the moment. It's interesting because when you don't have a central authority and you don't have any one person or one party responsible, when something does happen, like what do you do? Like if the whole community, say a DAO engages in some sort of illegal activities, like who's to blame? Is it the entire DAO? Is it the person that created the DAO but doesn't have control over the DAO after they released it? It's really a good question. And I think like we'll have to look at the laws of Wyoming to kind of see how they structured it. I know in Australia, what the general, I guess, move is at the moment is that a DAO is going to operate similarly to an LLC, a limited liability corporation. And so what that means is I'm assuming that the creators of the DAO will have to register themselves as some sort of authority. And even if they don't have control over the project, over the direction of the DAO, they may be liable for the actions that happens in the future.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
100%. So that's like, I guess the big question is like, why would you want to be a DAO if there's no real value if you don't really realize that value? Like you need it. It's really like a balancing act of figuring out whether or not it's worth transferring your company to a DAO structure.
Wow. Okay. Something to monitor and watch this space, see what companies actually form DAOs under these laws and regulations in the United States and other countries around the world, and see what happens, I guess. I'm sure there's a lot of smart people that have been thinking long and hard about this, and they're going to come up with the right structures that will protect themselves as individuals that are setting up the DAOs, but also allowing for this evolution of company structures and companies in general to take place. It's interesting space.
Yeah.
We've just got to see where it goes.
100%. And I think like what my concern is particularly as we're both in Australia, like I know that the Australian government in particular, like ASIC and ATO, they really like to over kind of regulate and just kind of play safe. So my concern is that they're going to take that approach with crypto as well and adopt like an overly prescriptive look at cryptocurrency. And what that's going to do is essentially hamper the innovation that happens in Australia. So what that means for us as like innovators and creators is it's going to be a lot harder, and it's going to be a lot less, I guess, enticing to create a project in Australia as opposed to like the US, as opposed to Singapore, like those countries that have very laxed regulations around crypto. So that's my hot take on how the development is happening in Australia.
It's interesting. We're having that Senate inquiry. I believe that's all finished at the moment. And then other companies like putting their take on it into the mix so that it can be heard and seen by regulators and politicians in general. We were talking a little bit before about this. You were saying that a report was delivered by fintech companies. Was that here in Australia?
Yeah. So the Australian government formed this committee called the Australia as a Technology and Financial Centre, which is a bit of it's a funny name. I think they're definitely trying to flex or something. But essentially the purpose of that committee is to basically figure out the direction of Australia's regulatory environment when it comes to digital assets, when it comes to cryptocurrency, DAOs in particular. So yeah, they released the final report in October, not too long ago. So I was saying it was perfect timing that you reached out, Pete. But yeah, like they made a few kind of recommendations, which I think, having looked at it, is a good start. But when you actually read the recommendations, it feels like they don't actually cover nearly enough of what they need to actually put Australia at the top of the heap as a technology, quote unquote, technology and financial center. Like, it's really, sorry about that. But yeah, I'm just a bit concerned that Australia is playing catch up with compared to a lot of the jurisdictions in other countries. One of the recommendations is to create a unique market license for exchanges, which is very different to how it's working now, where exchanges just register with APRA. But now they're creating their own specific market license for cryptocurrency exchanges, which is going to be, I guess, very good for the market. It's going to create a specific and unique loophole for exchanges to jump. A few other recommendations, which I think are interesting, is the DAO legal structure. They're recommending that it operate similarly to an LLC. And they're also creating some clarifications around capital gains tax, which will be very interesting to watch. And for those miners out there, they're recommending a tax concession for cryptocurrency miners who are operating on renewable energy. So that's a bit of a plus.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
that's different.
It's different. It's pretty good. But I think when you're looking at it, I guess holistically, it seems like there's not enough here to kind of provide a really, really solid regime for cryptocurrencies to operate in Australia. And what I'm worried about and what I think might happen is Australia's going to fall behind in terms of innovation in the space and the, I guess, market interest in cryptocurrency, which is a bit of a shame because as far as I'm aware, Australia has one of the highest cryptocurrency adoptions in the world. I think one in every 4 people hold cryptocurrency or have traded cryptocurrency. So it's really a bit of a shame and a bit of a lost opportunity, in my opinion, if they do decide to go for these recommendations. But it's still early days and we'll see how we go.
Interesting landscape. Again, we have to sit back and watch what happens. But yeah, those statistics in regards to the adoption here in Australia are very, very high. I think that's why a lot of big companies such as Crypto.com are investing so much in Australia at the moment. They've got a big strategy here to try and capture more of the market. Is because we're so open to cryptocurrencies and it's really easy for them to onboard more customers here in Australia. All they had to do was get that banking license and go by the regulations here, and hey presto, they're everywhere here in Australia, which is really cool to see. It's making the adoption a little bit easier.
For sure.
But we'll just have to sit back and see what happens with all these regulations and how the landscape falls into play. Is there any ways that regular cryptocurrency users such as myself or even you could help influence how some of these decisions are being made?
Yes, the committee is actually open to comment. That if you have a kind of submission that you'd like to make, you can lodge that with the committee on the Parliament of Australia website. I'm not sure if that's just closed to actual organizations and cryptocurrency, I guess, developers, but that's definitely something you can do. I guess the biggest thing is just to create awareness of the project. If you have social media, you can, and you're part of a cryptocurrency community, let people know that this is going on in Australia. I think what's going to happen is Australia is going to be accepting of crypto. It's going to be a bit different to a lot of more open jurisdictions, but it's not completely shutting it out like we see in some other countries. So it's a bit of a silver lining, and these recommendations are a good step in the right direction. It's just a bit of a shame that it's so late in the piece compared to other countries.
Yeah, this has been a really big eye-opening conversation. I've learned so much about this, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the listeners would have learned a lot out of this session as well. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, and I think I'll have you back again to chat a little bit more about this when the regulations are more clear, see what happens in the US when their regulations come into play, and whatever happens here in Australia as well as a comparison, just so we can see how different things are happening. And I'd really hate to see some of these regulations lose or make companies here in Australia move out into other jurisdictions just because it's too hard to operate here in Australia. I know 1 or 2 companies and 1 or 2 exchanges have already done that, moved over to Singapore just because it was easier, and then just apply for a bank license and operate over there. But hopefully we don't see more of that happening, and hopefully we don't see it happening in the United States either, just losing all those innovators and the new technology coming into play for crypto.
Yeah, for sure. Even though I guess these recommendations seem very bare bones and not that innovative, I think I am optimistic that Australia is going to be somewhat of a key player in the world. We have such an amazing legal regime when it comes to the financial industry and consumer protections. So I really hope that these recommendations do go through in a way that makes it more inviting for people who want to innovate, because I've met so many Australians on crypto Twitter doing their own projects and just trying to find the best way to approach it. And it, as you said, it'd really be a shame if those people had to move somewhere else or set up somewhere else. But fingers crossed, and we'll have to see what the regulations how the regulations play out in the future. But yeah, having said that, it was I had a great time, Pete. Thank you so much for having me on, and yeah, we'll run it back soon.
Awesome, yeah.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much, man. Cheers.
Really hope you enjoyed that interview. It was quite interesting to learn all these different aspects. You can find Yao on Twitter as Crypto Yowie. You can also find him on many Twitter spaces. So if you happen to be online during the day, that's daytime Australia, or evening in the United States, he's usually around some of these Twitter spaces, and you'll be finding him lurking or joining on the conversation. So make sure you check out these Twitter spaces. They're actually pretty cool. If you have time to engage with them, it's a nice spot to talk to some of the Cardano and crypto community. Now, if you really enjoyed this podcast, please make sure you give us a rating and review on the Apple Podcast Network. It's actually been a couple of weeks since I've received a Apple Podcast review. Either that or my review catcher, my review aggregator isn't working properly. So I'd love it if you reach out and leave us a awesome 5-star rating review. Let me know what you think of the podcast. It'd be really, really cool to hear from you. You can also jump onto our website at cardano.com.au and join one of our various channels where you can engage with the community. Our Discord channel is definitely where the action is happening at the moment. Everyone's jumping on Discord. Sometimes I use Telegram. I think we only have about 50 users on our Telegram group. It's not that active, but Discord is where it is. And if you're using Facebook, then we are on there as well. We post quite a few news updates and stories on there. Okay, don't forget to vote for us in the Sunday Swap ISO. If you haven't yet, your vote is very much appreciated. I really, really appreciate every single vote. We've gotten over 640 or so votes at the moment, which is absolutely phenomenal. If you look at the chart at pool.pm/Sunday, that's Sunday, that ice cream Sunday, you can see all of the votes that have been tallied up. Our pool ID is C8. Oh, no, hang on, let me check this. Our pool ID is C805. We're currently in position 35 out of the 285 pools. We have a total of 9,071,202 ADA voted, and we have, 635 people voting. So at the time of this podcast recording, that's where we're at the moment. We're almost going to slip down to position 36. So any more votes that we can get, absolutely amazing. Push us up just that little bit more, and we'll be on the wait list for the pools that can't fulfill the pool requirements in the top 30. Or if the top 30 pools are getting too full, they'll open up the list to the next 10, which will be one of, hopefully us, one of those 10 between 30 and 40. Might be one of us. So fingers crossed. We are still a contender. We may need just a couple more really large delegation votes to actually push us over the line and ensure that we're there, but we are so close. It's really, really cool to see. I've been pushing this quite hard. I've been putting quite a lot of time and effort into this. Okay, so that's it for this podcast episode. Please make sure you keep those seed phrases safe and secure, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debating. IOHK, Emergo, we're not affiliated, not Cardano Foundation. We just gotta say it. A show that you can learn and it's for your entertainment. Yeah, you gotta check it. Don't wanna be missing that. You were tuned in to the Learn Cardano podcast. Yeah, giving insight. Ain't another show like this when it come to crypto. Invest at your own risk. Might not be for everyone, but who it is for, we keep giving you some info and plenty more. Hey, yeah, the Learn Cardano podcast. Hey, yeah, the Learn Cardano podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Keep it locked right here. Let's go.